Hey guys, how the hell are you? And welcome to the very first Album of the Month video for 2022. Those of you guys that have followed this channel for a while, you guys know that I've attempted to do some Album of the Week segments in the past, and they've been varying degrees of successful, but one of the main takeaways that I have from doing those videos is that it's a little bit difficult for me to keep up with them. Honestly, I got kind of a few months into it last year and just kind of gave up. A couple of years before that, same thing, did it for a few months and just kind of, not really lost interest in doing it, but just ran out of time to keep up with that sort of thing. So I figured what would be great for this new year is let's start doing it on a monthly basis, keep it a little bit briefer, keep the list a little bit shorter, maybe hold on to your guys' attention a little bit more, maybe hold on to my attention a little bit more so that I can continue to do these videos for you. But that way I figure I can still give you guys some great album recommendations, maybe some stuff that you didn't know existed, maybe some stuff that you did know existed but just didn't quite know how absolutely kick-ass it was, and maybe it might inspire you to actually dive in and check it out. For those of you guys that may be interested, I do a Spotify playlist as well where I'm always updating all the new releases that are coming out every single week, and that is probably where you guys are going to see a lot of these albums for the first time that I'm going to be talking about in these segments. So this right here is what the playlist looks like from this last week, but the name of the playlist is Arnold Plays Guitar's New Release Radar. It's never going to change week to week, just the tracks therein. So first of all, January this year was pretty... it was a little all over the place as far as the overall quality of the new releases that were coming out, which is no surprise. It's a brand new year, it's after the holiday rush, and honestly, sometimes the stuff that's coming out in January is of varying levels of quality to begin with. This month, we didn't really have a whole huge amount of great stuff that was coming out. There were some weeks that were better than others. There was one week in particular that was just amazing, and this last week in particular was one of those weeks where it started off kind of meh, there's a lot of crap in here, but then the more I dove in, the more I found some really incredible stuff. And that's actually the week where I'm pulling this album of the month from. But a few bright shining stars this month. There was a new record from Fit for an Autopsy, which, whatever your thoughts about them, I think they are honestly the most original voice in deathcore right now, and no one is really doing what they are doing, much less pulling it off the way that they are. Also, a blackened grindcore band called Apes came out with a killer EP this month. Another EP that was really absolutely amazing was the Power Metal EP from Prehistoria. That was fantastic. Another album that I thought was great, speaking of power metal kind of stuff, if you get into that sort of thing, definitely check out the new release from The Ferrymen. It's Ronnie Romero from Rainbow and Lords of Black, Mike Tirana on drums, as well as Magnus Carlsen from Primal Fear, and a number of incredible other projects on pretty much everything else. Guitar, bass, keyboards, and songwriting. It's a fantastic record, but this album of the month has to go to E.V.I.L, E.V.I.L, by the band Krosis. Why do I love this record? That's honestly a great fucking question, because I really did not like the band's previous recorded output. I shouldn't say I didn't like it, it just didn't really do anything for me. In my opinion, it was kind of unimaginative. It didn't really grab me at all. It was progressive deathcore. It was technical, it was a little genty, but it didn't really grab hold of me in any sort of meaningful way, the band's previous recorded output. Something about this record, right from the moment I put it on, I was like, oh my god, something has changed. Something is different here. For lack of a better point of reference, I would point you to Fallujah. Think about the stuff that Fallujah used to put out, Nomadic and The Flesh Prevails, where it was still very much technical death metal. It was really, really big on vibe and atmosphere. Other places where you can find that same sort of sound, like Where Owls Know My Name, Rivers of Nile, The Zenith Passage, and probably at their absolute heaviest and most trudging, the band kind of bears a little bit of a resemblance to Surreption from time to time. It's heavy, it's really well produced, it's got a great mix job on it, but probably the biggest thing that you're going to take away from this is there's a lot of atmosphere, there's a lot of vibe. There's a fair amount going on with this record too. They're not content to just blast their way through everything. You're going to have moments where there's a really awesome syncopated guitar and drum pattern that gives way to something a lot more ethereal, a lot more atmospheric. I keep going back to that word. I keep going back to that term. Maybe with a blast beat underneath it. And then the dynamic shifts yet again to something that's much more extreme. That kind of goes on and on throughout this whole record, and for a band to be pulling it off the way that these guys are is fantastic, especially when a lot of other bands that kind of pursue this same style aren't pulling it off anymore. A lot of bands that have pursued this sort of sound have kind of veered away at different points, have made things too dynamic, have gone off on like a genty progressive track that totally undermines any sort of work that they did to create this incredible death metal foundation that they had. Not with Krosis. In this band, you've got something that started off very genty, started off very progressive, and now they're becoming a bit more extreme while still retaining that atmosphere, and that's something I can greatly appreciate. As far as overall performances go, the new drummer Nate is doing his best Andrew Baird impression throughout this whole record. Not to say he's a copycat, but definitely stylistically he's a very similar drummer, able to take things in various different directions while still being able to blast, do intricate fills, hold down the fort with kind of a straightforward 4/4 carpet roll pattern. Guitar playing wise, there's definitely a lot to mine here, because although they're creating a lot of that same sort of Scott Carstairs vibe with a lot of atmosphere in there, at least one of the guitar players, if not both, from a few videos that I've seen, are sort of integrating that kind of Tosin sort of thumping pattern, but bringing it to a technical death metal setting, which is very, very interesting. And there's a lot to take in from watching that sort of thing happen in this sort of environment. One of the things that I will say is really, really cool about this band is, as awesome as everyone seems to be on the instrument front, you've really got to give it up for the vocalist Mac Smith, an absolute powerhouse of a death metal vocalist, and in my opinion he could be this generation's Travis Ryan, just with how varied his delivery can be. He's got the brutal guttural growls, he's got the pig squeal a little bit, he's got something that's almost like a Chris Barnes chipmunk scream. He's got a great aggressive mid-growl tone. It's just really, really exceptional to listen to him kind of deliver over all this great instrumental music too. Song-wise, a lot of great tracks here. Probably one thing that I need to share with you guys though is how awesome and how killer that track Gladiolus is. That is probably going to be the song to beat for the entire rest of the year for me. It's one of those things that I've listened to maybe 20, 25 times already. It's just one of those things that pulls you in. It builds, it builds, it builds. You know, it has a couple of dynamic shifts in there. It gets really extreme at the end, and it just keeps building. It keeps building. And then all of a sudden at 4 minutes, it's just done. The song is over, and you're just left wanting even more of that track. So you go back, you listen to it again and again and again. One of those ones that really just kind of grabs you and holds on to you with that awesome, there again, syncopated pattern, a lot of atmosphere coming forth from a little bit of a guitar arpeggio that's underneath it. what sounds like a tapped bass pattern that's going on underneath that, even just further adding to the overall vibe of that track. Ooh, man, it's just a killer song on a killer record. That being said, not without its faults though. It's one of those things where there are a couple things I don't really care for on this record. Firstly, there are a few intro/interlude pieces that are here on this record that are a couple minutes long a piece. And don't get me wrong, they do a great job of sort of maintaining the overall vibe and atmosphere and flow of the record. But couldn't we have shortened them up a little bit? You know, instead of being a couple minutes a piece, couldn't we have maybe made them about a minute a piece just to sort of carry us on and into the next song? Besides that, that first single, that song that they've got a music video for, Begonia, if there's any song on this record that can be called a weak point on this record, it would be that one. That song just kind of sounds like a holdout from the band's previous recorded material, and in that, I can't find a lot to love about that track. It's something that sticks out like a sore thumb compared to anything else on the record. Everything else on the record just has that vibe, has that heaviness, has that awesome use of dynamics, and on that track it just seems forced. So, I mean, you take away that song, you take away those little interlude passages, you're left with 24 minutes of otherwise top shelf material though. So, for that reason, it's gotta be my album of the month for January 2022. Seek out this record, check it out, check out the band's Bandcamp page, which I'm gonna link below, and yeah, give them a little bit of love in the future. Follow them on their various social media, but they have finally kind of won me over with this new record. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. As always, like this video, subscribe to this channel. There is lots more metal and guitar-oriented content to come. And as always, please, take what you do seriously. Do not take yourselves too seriously.